What if one moment of cruelty could lead to the most unexpected redemption? In the heart of Boston's historic district, the Fairmont Heritage Hotel's crystal chandeliers cast golden light across a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits. The annual Children's Hope Foundation Gala drew New England's wealthiest elite, each guest competing to display their generosity as publicly as possible. But among the champagne toasts and orchestrated charity, two men carried burdens that no amount of money could lift. 52-year-old Harrison Webb stood near the bar, his third bourbon barely masking the hollowness in his eyes. The real estate mogul had everything the world called success, except the one thing that mattered. 3 months ago, his ex-wife Jennifer had won full custody of their 10-year-old son Ethan, and every day since felt like drowning in slow motion. Near the hotel's grand entrance, 38-year-old Devin Matthews handed keys to another wealthy guest, his valet uniform crisp despite the October chill. His gentle smile never quite reached his eyes, a carefully practiced mask he'd worn for 3 years ever since the night his wife Sarah died, and his world shattered into pieces he'd never quite managed to reassemble. Neither man knew that in less than an hour, their lives would collide in a way that would strip them both bare, revealing the humanity beneath their carefully constructed armor. Where are you watching from tonight? Devin had learned to navigate the world of Boston's elite with quiet efficiency. As the Fairmont's senior valet, he'd parked Bentleys and Maseratis for 3 years, invisible to the people whose keys he held. They never asked about his life, never wondered about the stories behind his courteous nods and professional distance. That's exactly how he preferred it. Before this life, before the uniform, and the carefully neutral expressions, Devin Matthews had been someone entirely different. At Juilliard, they'd called him a prodigy. His interpretation of Rachmaninoff had moved professors to tears. His senior recital had earned a standing ovation, and whispers of a concert career that seemed destined for greatness. The Boston Symphony had extended an invitation. Record labels had started making inquiries. Then he'd met Sarah Chen, a brilliant violinist with eyes that saw straight through his performance anxiety to the vulnerable artist beneath. They'd married the summer after graduation, two musicians building a life around beauty and sound and shared dreams. She'd believed in him more than he believed in himself. The accident happened on a Thursday. Sarah had been driving home from teaching violin lessons at the community center, the same route she'd taken 100 times before. A drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection of Commonwealth and Exeter. The police said she died instantly, that she didn't suffer. Devin had never found comfort in those words. He'd played piano at her funeral. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the piece she'd loved most. His hands had trembled so badly he'd barely made it through. When the last note faded, something inside him had broken so completely that he'd never touched a piano again. Their daughter Lily was 9 when she lost her mother. Now 12, she carried Sarah's same quiet strength, the same way of tilting her head when she listened to music. Devin had sold their apartment in Manhattan, moved back to Boston where his sister lived, and found the valet job. It was enough. It had to be enough. He could pay the bills, keep Lily in a good school, maintain the careful routine that kept grief from swallowing him whole. Music haunted him everywhere. In coffee shops, elevators, even in the hotel lobby where a grand Steinway piano sat like an accusation, reminding him daily of everything he'd abandoned. He'd trained himself not to look at it, to walk past without acknowledging its presence. Most days he succeeded. Harrison Webb's story was different, but the pain ran just as deep. He'd built Webb Properties from nothing, turning a small construction company into New England's premier real estate development firm. 40-hour weeks became 60, then 80. Success demanded sacrifice, and Harrison had been willing to pay the price. His wife Jennifer had been patient for years raising Ethan while Harrison closed deals and expanded territories. But patience has limits. When Ethan turned 8, Jennifer delivered an ultimatum that Harrison had dismissed as melodramatic. When Ethan turned 9, she'd filed for divorce. When the boy turned 10, the judge had ruled that a father who worked 70 hours a week couldn't provide the stable home environment a child needed. Harrison had lost his family while building an empire, and the bitter irony tasted like poison every single day. Tonight's gala was supposed to be good for business. Children's charities played well in the society pages, and Harrison's publicist had insisted his attendance would help soften his image during the custody appeal. But standing in this ballroom full of self-congratulatory wealth, Harrison felt nothing but contempt for the whole performance, himself included. His business partner, 45-year-old Victor Stone, approached with the easy confidence of a man who'd never experienced real loss. Victor's divorce had been amicable. His children well-adjusted, his life enviably uncomplicated. "You need to work the room," Victor said, gesturing with his champagne flute. "Senator Bradford's wife is on the hospital board, Court of Appeals. Judge Morrison is by the silent auction. These connections matter, Harrison." "Everything's a transaction with you," Harrison muttered, signaling the bartender for another bourbon. "That's how the world works," Victor replied smoothly. "Speaking of transactions, I'm thinking of making an offer on that Beacon Hill property. The one with the—" He stopped mid-sentence, his attention caught by something across the room. Devin had entered through the service entrance, bringing fresh programs that the event coordinator had requested. He was supposed to drop them at the registration desk and leave immediately, but he'd made the mistake of glancing at the stage where the Steinway sat, illuminated by soft spotlights. It was a 1923 Model D pristine and perfectly maintained. Even from across the room, Devin could see the wood grain's subtle patterns, could almost feel the weight of those keys beneath his fingers. Sarah had played a Steinway. Their apartment piano had been a modest upright, but she'd always said that someday when they could afford it, they'd own a grand just like this one. His feet carried him closer before his mind could object. He knew he had work to do, but something about tonight felt different. Maybe it was the music flowing through the ballroom's speakers, or the way the candlelight reminded him of the intimate venues where he and Sarah had performed together. Whatever the reason, he found himself standing beside the piano, his hand hovering inches above the closed lid. Victor noticed him first. "Look at that," he chuckled, nudging Harrison. "Even the help gets starry-eyed around quality instruments. Probably thinks he could play the thing." The alcohol had loosened something dangerous in Harrison. All his rage at Jennifer, at the judge, at a system that had ripped his son away, focused suddenly on this stranger in a valet uniform staring at a piano like it held the secrets of the universe. "I bet he does think that," Harrison said, his voice carrying more bite than he'd intended. "I bet everyone thinks they're secretly talented at something." Devin's hand dropped to his side. He could feel their eyes on him, could sense the MOCKERY building. He'd experienced it before in the 3 years since he'd traded concert halls for parking lots. The assumption that his uniform defined his worth, that his current circumstances told the whole story of who he was. "Excuse me," Harrison called out loud enough that nearby guests turned to look. "You there?" Valet. Devin's supervisor, Mrs. Patricia Freeman, appeared at his elbow immediately. "Mr. Matthews, you're needed at the entrance," she said urgently, trying to diffuse whatever was building. But Harrison was already crossing the ballroom, Victor trailing behind, with an amused smirk. The crowd's conversations began to fade, as people sensed drama unfolding. "I have a question," Harrison said, stopping a few feet from Devin. Up close, he could see the valet was younger than he'd thought, with careful eyes that held something Harrison couldn't quite identify. Pain, maybe. Or secrets. That piano. You were looking at it like you know something about it. "Do you play The ballroom had grown noticeably quieter. Devin could feel dozens of eyes turning toward them, could sense the cruel entertainment some of these wealthy people found in watching the powerful toy with the powerless. "I should get back to work, sir," Devin said quietly, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "Simple question." Harrison pressed something ugly coiling in his chest. "Can you play piano, yes or no?" Devin's hands stilled at his sides. He could feel the weight of every stare from curious socialites in $1,000 gowns to uncomfortable hotel staff who knew his situation and wished they could intervene. The massive ballroom seemed to shrink around him, the air growing thick with anticipation. "I used to play." Devin finally answered his words, careful and measured. "A long time ago." Victor laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Of course you did. Everyone used to do something impressive, didn't they? I used to be a baseball prospect. My cousin used to model in Paris. It's amazing how many unfulfilled dreams are walking around." Several guests chuckled at Victor's observation. Harrison felt a spike of satisfaction that made him hate himself, even as he fed the feeling. This was wrong, some distant part of his conscience whispered. This man had done nothing to deserve humiliation. But Harrison's pain demanded an outlet, and here was someone even more powerless than he felt. "Used to play," Harrison repeated, taking another sip of bourbon. "What happened?" "Life get in the way of your musical aspirations." Devin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Something like that." Mrs. Freeman stepped forward again, her expression pleading. "Gentlemen, Mr. Matthews has responsibilities this evening. Perhaps we could— I'm just curious." Harrison interrupted, his voice growing louder. "We're at a charity gala celebrating the arts after all. Music education, cultural enrichment, all those noble causes we're supposedly supporting tonight. Here's a man who claims musical ability. Why not let him demonstrate?" A murmur rippled through the growing crowd. Some guests looked uncomfortable, recognizing the cruelty beneath Harrison's words. Others leaned in with interest, drawn to conflict like moths to flame. "Show us what you've got," Victor encouraged, emboldened by Harrison's aggression and the audience's attention. "Unless it was all talk. Unless you just like to stand around expensive things, you'll never be able to afford pretending you understand them." Devin felt something shift in his spine. He thought about Sarah, who'd worked 2 jobs to pay for her violin lessons before Juilliard. He thought about his daughter Lily, who'd inherited her mother's love of music and her father's stubborn pride. He thought about every time in the past 3 years he'd walked past a piano and felt like a ghost haunting his own abandoned life. Actually, Devin said, his voice gaining strength, "I would be happy to play." The murmur became a wave of genuine surprise. Harrison felt his confidence falter slightly. Something in the valet's tone suggested this might not go the way he'd expected. Mrs. Freeman touched Devin's arm gently. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "Your job is secure. Don't let them." "It's all right, Patricia," Devin said, using her first name for the first time in 3 years. "I'd like to play." He walked toward the piano with steady steps, his valet uniform a stark contrast to the evening gowns and tuxedos surrounding him. Several guests pulled out their phones, sensing a moment worth recording. Harrison followed Victor beside him, both men expecting amateur fumbling that would confirm their assumptions. Devin approached the Steinway like a man approaching an old friend he'd wronged. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted the lid, revealing the pristine ivory keys beneath. He adjusted the bench with familiar precision, his movements carrying a muscle memory that made Harrison's stomach tighten unexpectedly. The crowd pressed closer, forming a semicircle around the piano. The event's hired musicians had stopped playing, curious about the disruption. Even the catering staff paused in their duties, drawn by the unusual spectacle. "What would you like to hear?" Devin asked, his fingers hovering above the keys with natural ease, that belied his years away from performance. "Anything," Harrison replied, though his voice had lost some of its edge. "Surprise us." Devin closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something had fundamentally changed in his expression. The careful neutrality was gone, replaced by a focused intensity that transformed his entire presence. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing deepened. For the first time in 3 years, he let himself be who he used to be. His fingers found the opening notes of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the same piece he'd played at Sarah's funeral, the piece he'd sworn he'd never touch again. The first notes floated across the ballroom like whispers, soft and haunting and impossibly beautiful. The technical perfection was immediate and undeniable. These weren't the fumbling attempts of an amateur. These were the hands of someone who'd spent 10,000 hours mastering an instrument, someone who understood music not just intellectually, but in the marrow of their bones. Conversations didn't just pause, they died completely. Even the servers stopped moving, caught by the unexpected beauty filling the ornate space. Harrison's champagne glass stilled halfway to his lips. This wasn't possible. Valets didn't play like this. Men in service uniforms didn't possess this level of artistry. Yet the evidence was undeniable, flowing from Devin's fingers in waves of technical brilliance and emotional depth that made the air itself seem to vibrate with meaning. Victor's smirk faded. He glanced at Harrison, seeing his own shock reflected in his partner's expression. The crowd pressed closer, many guests unconsciously moving toward the piano, as if drawn by gravitational pull. A woman in a Chanel gown wiped tears from her eyes. A prominent surgeon stood with his mouth slightly open, his critical mind struggling to reconcile what he was hearing with what he'd expected to hear. Devin's eyes remained closed as he played lost in memories of Sarah, listening to him practice in their cramped Manhattan apartment. He could almost feel her presence beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her voice whispering that music was too beautiful to abandon, that grief didn't have to mean the end of everything that brought joy. The piece's melancholic beauty spoke of loss and longing, of nights spent staring at empty spaces where loved ones used to be. Every note carried the weight of Devin's 3-year silence, the accumulated grief he'd tried to bury beneath routine and responsibility. Harrison felt something crack open in his chest. This was more than technical skill. This was a window into another person's soul, and what he saw there looked uncomfortably familiar. The same loneliness, the same ache, the same desperate attempt to keep moving forward when everything inside screamed to stop. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. As Devin's fingers moved through the sonata's first movement with flawless precision, Harrison realized he'd made a terrible mistake. This wasn't just someone who used to play. This was a genuine artist, and his performance was about to shatter every assumption in the room. Little did Harrison know he was about to witness something that would change his life forever. The opening movement of Moonlight Sonata unfolded like a meditation on sorrow. Devin's fingers moved across the keys with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of dedicated practice, from muscle memory so deep it lives in the subconscious. Each phrase was shaped with intention, each dynamic shift executed with subtle mastery that spoke of conservatory training and natural talent refined to its highest expression. The crowd had completely forgotten why they'd gathered around the piano. What had started as cruel entertainment had transformed into something approaching reverence. Men and women who'd paid $5,000 per plate for the privilege of attending this gala found themselves witnessing a performance more moving than anything they'd experienced in Boston's finest concert halls. Harrison stood frozen, his bourbon forgotten in his hand. Shame began creeping through the alcohol's numbing effect, though he wasn't ready to acknowledge it yet. He'd expected fumbling, maybe a recognizable melody poorly executed. Instead, he was hearing the kind of playing that made him understand why people called music a universal language. Victor shifted uncomfortably beside him, finally grasping that his crude suggestion had evolved into something far more serious. Several guests shot them disapproving looks, as if their initial mockery had somehow tainted the beautiful moment unfolding before them. As Devin transitioned into the piece's middle section, his whole body seemed to channel the music's emotional architecture. His shoulders rose and fell with the phrases. His head tilted with the melodic lines. For 3 years, he'd kept this part of himself locked away, convinced that opening the door to music would unleash grief he couldn't control. But now, playing Sarah's favorite piece in front of strangers who'd meant to humiliate him, he felt something unexpected. Not drowning, but floating. Not breaking, but slowly, carefully beginning to heal. Mrs. Freeman stood at the edge of the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She'd known Devin for 3 years, had seen his quiet competence and gentle manner, but she'd never imagined this depth of artistry hiding beneath his professional exterior. She thought about all the times she'd asked him to work double shifts, all the additional responsibilities she'd piled on his shoulders, never knowing she was asking a concert-level pianist to park cars and carry luggage. The hotel's general manager, Robert Chen, had emerged from his office to investigate the unusual silence. He stood in the doorway, stunned by what he was witnessing. In 20 years of managing luxury hotels, he'd hosted countless events with professional musicians, but something about this performance carried an authenticity that polished professionalism often lacked. This was music born from genuine emotion, not technical display designed to impress. A prominent music critic from the Boston Globe happened to be among the guests. Eleanor Hartwell had reviewed performances at Carnegie Hall and the Metropolitan Opera. She'd heard Yo-Yo Ma play in intimate settings and watched Lang Lang bring audiences to tears at Symphony Hall. Yet something about this unnamed valet's interpretation of Beethoven made her pull out her phone not to record, but to note the unique phrasing choices and emotional depth that suggested serious classical training. Devin's fingers found the first movement's climactic section, where Beethoven's genius transforms melancholy into something approaching transcendence. The technical demands increased, requiring perfect coordination between hands, flawless timing, and the kind of emotional commitment that can't be faked. He delivered it with the ease of someone for whom these challenges had long ago been conquered and internalized. His right hand sang the melody with crystalline clarity, while his left hand provided harmonic support that was both steady and subtly expressive. The balance was perfect. The tone was gorgeous. The interpretation was mature and deeply felt. Harrison found himself stepping closer without realizing it, drawn by something he couldn't name. For 3 months, he'd been unable to feel anything except anger and loss. He'd become numb to beauty, dismissive of sentiment, contemptuous of anything that reminded him of the softer emotions he'd once allowed himself. But this music was breaking through his armor note by devastating note. The piece reminded him of Ethan. His son had started piano lessons 2 years ago before the divorce. Harrison had been too busy to attend the recitals, too focused on closing deals to listen to the halting practice sessions that had drifted through their house. Jennifer had begged him to show interest, to understand that their son was trying to connect with him through music. Harrison had promised he would someday when things settled down at work. Things never settled down. Now Ethan lived in a different house, and Harrison couldn't remember the last time he'd heard his son play. As the first movement drew to its quiet conclusion, Devin's hands stilled on the keys. The final notes hung in the air like suspended breath, gradually fading into profound silence. He kept his eyes closed, not ready to face the crowd, not ready to return to the reality of his valet uniform and the wealthy strangers who'd gathered to mock him. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then someone began to applaud. Slowly at first, almost tentatively, as if afraid to break the spell. Others joined in the applause, building like a wave growing from polite appreciation into something approaching a standing ovation. Devin opened his eyes and stood slowly, his legs unsteady beneath him. He'd just done something he'd sworn he'd never do again, had opened a door he'd been certain should remain closed forever. The emotions flooding through him were too complex to name. Relief mixed with grief. Joy tangled with pain. A sense of homecoming shadowed by the memory of everything he'd lost. Harrison stepped forward, no longer bolstered by alcohol-fueled confidence, but stripped down to raw uncertainty. Up close, he could see that the valet's eyes were wet with tears barely held in check. That was Harrison began, then stopped, overwhelmed by the inadequacy of words. Extraordinary Eleanor Hartwell finished materializing beside them. She fixed Devin with a penetrating gaze. "Where did you study?" "Juilliard." Devin answered quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "Class of 2009. A collective intake of breath rippled through the nearest guests. "Juilliard, one of the world's most prestigious music conservatories. Acceptance rate below 6%. Alumni including countless concert pianists, composers, and musical directors who shaped global culture." Juilliard Victor repeated his earlier mockery, now sounding hollow and cruel even to his own ears. Eleanor pulled out her phone with practiced efficiency. "Devin Matthews, you said." She typed rapidly, then her eyes widened as results populated her screen. "Good Lord. You performed Rachmaninoff's Third with the Youth Orchestra at 17. You won the Gilmore Young Artist Award. There are reviews here calling you one of the most promising pianists of your generation." She looked up, confusion and concern mixing in her expression. "What are you doing working as a valet?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for the story that would explain this impossible contradiction. Devin's hands shook as he stepped away from the piano. This was exactly what he'd been trying to avoid for 3 years. The questions, the explanations, the need to relive the worst night of his life for the curiosity of strangers. "I should get back to work," he said, turning toward the exit. "Wait," Harrison called out, surprised by his own urgency. Something about this moment felt crucial, like standing at a crossroads where the wrong choice would haunt him forever. "Please. I need to—" He paused, struggling with words that didn't come naturally to a man who'd built an empire on decisive action and confident declarations. "I owe you an apology." Devin stopped, but didn't turn around. His shoulders were rigid with tension, his body language screaming his desire to escape. "What I did tonight?" Harrison continued, his voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. "Trying to embarrass you, making assumptions about who you are based on your uniform. There's no excuse for it. I was cruel because I'm angry at my own life, and that's not justification, it's just pathetic." Victor touched Harrison's arm, uncomfortable with this public display of vulnerability. "Harrison, maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," Harrison said firmly, shaking off his partner's hand. He'd spent his whole life avoiding difficult emotions, deflecting with work and anger, and the 1,000 small ways people protect themselves from feeling too much. Look where it had gotten him. Divorced. Alone. Estranged from his son. becoming the kind of man who mocked strangers for entertainment. "You're right to walk away," Harrison said to Devin's back. "I don't deserve your time or your talent. But before you go, I want you to know that what you just played, it was the most beautiful thing I've heard in years. It reminded me of..." His voice cracked unexpectedly. "It reminded me of my son, of what I've lost, of what I threw away by being too proud and too busy to appreciate what mattered." Devin turned slowly. For the first time, he really looked at Harrison Webb, seeing past the expensive suit and entitled bearing to the grief-ravaged man beneath. He recognized that look. He'd seen it in his own mirror every morning for 3 years. "Why are you really angry?" Devin asked quietly. The question hit Harrison like a physical blow. No one had asked him that. Not his therapist, not his lawyer, not even Jennifer during their bitter custody battle. They'd all assumed they knew. Angry about the divorce, angry about losing custody, angry about his public failure. But Devin's question went deeper, and Harrison found himself answering with an honesty that surprised even himself. "I'm angry because I failed my son," Harrison said, tears finally breaking free, despite the hundreds of watching eyes. "I thought I was building something for him, for our family. The company, the success, the money. I thought it all meant something. But what good is an empire if you lose your kingdom? What's the point of success if you're succeeding alone?" The ballroom was utterly silent now, every guest transfixed by the raw emotion unfolding before them. This wasn't the networking opportunity or social performance they'd expected. This was two human beings, standing in front of each other, stripped of pretense, connected by shared pain. "I lost someone too," Devin said softly. "My wife, Sarah, 3 years ago." Harrison's expression shifted from defensive grief to sudden understanding. "The music," he said. "The way you played. That wasn't just technical skill. That was saying goodbye." Devin finished, over and over again. Every note a conversation with someone who can't answer back. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments. The two men stood in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by Boston's elite, but utterly alone in their shared understanding of loss. The crowd sensed they were witnessing something significant, though most couldn't name exactly what had shifted in the room's energy. Mrs. Freeman wiped her eyes, no longer caring about professional propriety. Robert Chen stood with his hand over his heart. Eleanor Hartwell had abandoned her phone entirely, too moved to take notes. Victor backed away slowly, finally recognizing that his earlier cruelty had contributed to something he didn't understand and couldn't fix. His discomfort was palpable, a man confronted with emotional depths he'd spent his whole life avoiding. Harrison took a step toward Devin, then another, closing the distance between them. "Would you..." He hesitated, then found his courage. "Would you play something else? Something that isn't about goodbye? Something about hope, maybe, or second chances?" Devin looked at the piano, then back at Harrison. 3 years of careful isolation had just been shattered by one performance, and he could feel the old life calling to him, the artist he'd been trying to bury, resurfacing with every breath. "For your son," Devin said. "What's his name, Ethan?" "Harrison," answered his voice, breaking on the single word. "He's 10. He plays piano too, or he used to. I don't know if he still does. I haven't heard him play in 6 months." Devin nodded slowly, understanding everything that wasn't being said. The distance, the regret, the love that had been there all along but never properly expressed. "Then this is for Ethan," Devin said, returning to the piano bench. "And for everyone who forgot that music matters more than money, that presence matters more than success, that the people we love are worth more than anything we could ever build or buy. He placed his hands on the keys again, but this time there was no hesitation, no fear. This time he was choosing to play, not running from grief, but running toward something that might eventually become healing. His fingers found the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece about light and beauty and the quiet magic of moonlight on water. Where Beethoven had been about darkness and sorrow, Debussy was about finding beauty, despite the darkness, about moments of grace that come unexpectedly in the middle of night. The music filled the ballroom with a different energy entirely. Lighter, but no less profound. Hopeful without being naive. It spoke of second chances and new beginnings, of doors that could open just when you thought all doors were closed forever. Harrison closed his eyes and let himself remember Ethan as a small child, the way his son's face would light up when Harrison came home from work, the enthusiastic hugs, the drawings proudly presented, the simple joy of a child who just wanted his father's attention and hadn't yet learned that attention could be withheld or conditional or perpetually delayed by more important things. When had it changed? Harrison couldn't pinpoint the exact moment. It had been gradual, probably the slow accumulation of missed recitals and postponed conversations and promises of next time that never came. One day, Ethan had been trying to show him a new piano piece he'd learned, and Harrison had been on a conference call that couldn't be interrupted. When the call finally ended, Ethan was gone, and Harrison had told himself they'd listen to it later. Later never came. As Devin played, Harrison made a decision. He didn't know if it was possible to repair what he'd broken, didn't know if Ethan would even want to see him beyond the court-mandated visitation schedule. But he had to try. He had to find a way to tell his son that he understood. Now finally understood what actually mattered. The music swelled to its emotional peak. Debussy's cascading arpeggios creating the impression of light dancing on water of beauty that exists independent of human struggle and suffering. The technical demands were significant, requiring perfect finger independence and delicate touch control, but Devin navigated them with the ease of someone for whom such challenges were second nature. Eleanor Hartwell was openly weeping, now all pretense of professional distance abandoned. She'd reviewed thousands of performances, heard music from the world's greatest artists, but something about this moment transcended mere technical excellence. This was music with purpose, played by someone who understood viscerally what it meant to lose everything and searched desperately for reasons to continue. As the final notes of Clair de Lune faded into silence, Devin's hands remained on the keys. His head bowed. He'd just broken 3 years of self-imposed exile from the thing he loved most, and the emotions were overwhelming. Relief, terror, grief, joy. All of it tangled together in a knot he couldn't hope to unravel. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, genuine and sustained. This wasn't polite appreciation. This was recognition of something extraordinary, the kind of rare moment that people would remember and retell for years. But Devin barely heard them. All his attention was focused on Harrison Webb, the stranger who'd meant to humiliate him and somehow impossibly had given him back a piece of himself he thought was lost forever. Harrison stepped forward as the applause continued. "I don't know if this is appropriate," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know if I have any right to ask, but I need your help." Devin looked up, confused. "My help?" My son, Harrison, continued urgently. "Ethan. He needs a music teacher. Someone who understands what it means to play from the heart, not just technically, Someone who can show him that music matters, that art matters, that there are things in life worth caring about more than balance sheets and profit margins. Victor had returned, drawn by the continued applause. "Harrison, you can't seriously be someone who can teach me," Harrison interrupted, ignoring his partner entirely. "Teach both of us. Help me understand the language my son speaks. Help me find a way back to him before it's too late." Devin stood slowly from the piano bench, his mind racing. This was the last thing he'd expected. He'd come to work tonight as he had every night for 3 years, planning to park cars and remain invisible and keep his grief carefully compartmentalized. Now he was being offered something he didn't know how to accept. "I don't teach," Devin said carefully. "I haven't played in 3 years. I wouldn't know where to begin." "Then we'll figure it out together," Harrison pressed. "I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm asking you to help me be a better father than I've been. To help me show my son that I see him, that I hear him, that I understand music is his way of telling me things I've been too stupid to listen for." Mrs. Freeman had moved closer during the exchange. "Mr. Matthews," she said gently, "if you want to do this, the hotel will work around your schedule. You've earned that and more." Devin looked at her, then at Harrison, then at the hundreds of guests who were still watching with rapt attention. His whole life had just pivoted on an axis he hadn't known existed, and he had no idea what came next. "I need time to think," Devin finally said. It's a lot." Of course, Harrison agreed quickly. "Take all the time you need, but please think about it. I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for a 10-year-old boy who deserves a father who shows up, who pays attention, who understands that playing piano isn't just a hobby, but a window into his soul." The words hit Devin hard because he could hear Sarah's voice in them. She'd always said that music was how sensitive souls communicated when words weren't enough. She'd seen it in him, had understood that his piano playing was how he processed emotions too complex for language. "I'll think about it," Devin said, and he meant it. What happened next, no one could have predicted. 3 days later, Devin found himself standing outside a brownstone in Beacon Hill, questioning every decision that had led him to this moment. Harrison had called the morning after the gala, then sent a formal email, then finally shown up at the hotel with a handwritten letter that revealed a vulnerability Devin hadn't expected from a real estate mogul. The letter explained everything: the divorce, the custody battle, Ethan's love of music, Harrison's regret about prioritizing work over family, his desperate hope that music could be the bridge that reconnected him to his son. Devin had read the letter 3 times before showing it to his sister Maya, who'd immediately burst into tears and told him that Sarah would have wanted him to do this, that helping this broken father and his musical son was exactly the kind of thing that gave grief purpose. Now, standing on Harrison's doorstep, Devin wasn't sure he'd made the right choice. 3 years away from teaching. 3 years of avoiding music entirely. What could he possibly offer these strangers except his own unresolved pain? The door opened before he could ring the bell. Harrison stood there looking more nervous than Devin had seen him at the gala. He'd traded his power suit for jeans and a casual button-down, and the transformation made him seem younger, more approachable. "You came," Harrison said, relief evident in his voice. "I said I would. People say lots of things. Doesn't mean they follow through." Harrison stepped aside. "Come in. Ethan's upstairs. He doesn't know you're coming. I thought I didn't want to get his hopes up if you changed your mind." The brownstone's interior was elegant but impersonal, decorated by someone with expensive taste but little emotional investment. Original artwork hung on walls painted in fashionable gray tones. Modern furniture arranged in perfect symmetry. Everything carefully curated to impress, except for one corner of the living room, where an upright piano sat, surrounded by sheet music scattered across the floor, a backpack slumped against the bench, A half-empty glass of water on the piano's top suggested someone had been practicing recently. "That's his corner," Harrison said, following Devin's gaze. The decorator wanted to put the piano in the study, keep it out of sight. Ethan insisted it stay here. Said he needed to be able to see it from the kitchen, from the hallway, from anywhere in the house. Like he was afraid it might disappear if he looked away. Devin understood that fear intimately. After Sarah died, he'd sold their piano within a week, terrified that seeing it would break him completely. Now he wondered if that had been a mistake, if maybe Ethan's approach was healthier, keeping beauty close even when it hurt. "Can I hear him play?" Devin asked. Harrison's expression turned pained. "He hasn't played since I came home yesterday and told him about you. I think he's nervous. Or maybe he thinks I'm setting him up for disappointment. He's learned not to trust my promises." The self-recrimination in Harrison's voice was raw and honest. Devin recognized it as the sound of a parent confronting their own failures, and it made him think of his daughter Lily, who'd had to watch her father retreat from the world after her mother died. "Let me talk to him," Devin said. "Alone, if that's all right." Harrison looked uncertain, then nodded. "Second floor, first door on the right. His name's on it in those glow-in-the-dark letters. He picked them out when he was 6. Devin climbed the stairs slowly, his hand trailing along the polished banister. Family photos lined the wall documenting Ethan's progression from infant to toddler to gap-toothed elementary schooler. In the early photos, Harrison was present and smiling, holding his son with obvious affection. The more recent photos showed Ethan alone, or with his mother Harrison's absence marking the timeline like missing pages in a book. The bedroom door was decorated with exactly what Harrison had described Ethan's name spelled out in glowing letters, along with a poster for a Beethoven concert and another for Hamilton. Devin knocked gently. "I'm doing homework," a young voice called out, not quite successfully hiding suspicion. "My name's Devin," he said through the door. "Your dad invited me over. I'm a pianist." "Well, I used to be. It's complicated." A long pause. Then, "You're the guy from YouTube." Devin blinked in confusion. "What?" The door opened to reveal a slight boy with Harrison's blue eyes and his mother's delicate features. He held up a phone displaying a video with over 2 million views. The title read, "Hotel Valet reveals he's actually a Juilliard pianist. Stunning performance." "Someone recorded it," Ethan explained. "It's kind of viral. People are trying to figure out who you are. There's theories you're some famous pianist hiding from the mob or in witness protection or something." Devin stared at the phone, watching himself play Moonlight Sonata, while hundreds of well-dressed strangers looked on. The video quality was surprisingly good, capturing both his performance and the crowd's reaction. The comments section was filled with speculation and praise. "I didn't know," Devin said quietly. "Dad says you might teach me." Ethan continued, setting the phone aside. "But I don't need a teacher. I have Mrs. Patterson on Tuesdays. She's fine." The defensive posture was familiar. Devin had seen it in Lily whenever anyone suggested therapy or grief counseling. The assumption that outsiders couldn't possibly understand, combined with a fierce determination to protect vulnerable parts of themselves from further damage. "Your dad says you're good," Devin said, not rising to the challenge. "Can I hear you play?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "This is a test, isn't it? He wants to see if I'm good enough to bother with." "No," Devin said firmly. "This is me being curious about someone who loves music enough to insist their piano stay in the living room where they can always see it. That's not about skill. That's about devotion." Something in Ethan's expression softened slightly. "What do you want to hear? What do you want to play?" Ethan considered this for a moment, then led Devin downstairs to the living room. Harrison had disappeared, giving them space. The boy sat at the piano bench and cracked his knuckles in a gesture so reminiscent of Devin's own pre-performance ritual that it made him smile. "I've been working on Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat, Major," Ethan said. "The same one you played at the gala. Mrs. Patterson says it's too advanced for my level, but I don't care." "It's my favorite." "Mine too," Devin admitted. "Well, it was my wife's favorite. That's why I played it." Ethan looked up surprised by this personal revelation. Was she died? 3 years ago. The boy's expression transformed from suspicion to understanding. "That's why you stopped playing?" "Yeah." "Did it help?" "Stopping." Devin thought about the question carefully. "No," he finally answered. "It didn't help at all. It just made me a different kind of sad." Ethan nodded slowly, processing this information. Then he turned to the piano and began to play. The difference between technical competence and genuine artistry became immediately apparent. Ethan had learned the notes correctly, had clearly spent hours practicing the fingerings and dynamics. But there was a hollowness to his interpretation, a sense that he was performing the music rather than living inside it. Devin listened without interruption, hearing both the potential and the barriers. This was a child who loved music, but hadn't yet learned to trust it with his real feelings. He was playing it safe, hitting the right notes without taking emotional risks. When Ethan finished, he looked at Devin, expectantly braced for criticism. "That was technically very good," Devin said honestly. "You've clearly put in the practice time. Your fingering is mostly correct, your tempo is steady. Mrs. Patterson has taught you well." But Ethan prompted, hearing the unspoken qualification. "But you're holding back," Devin said gently. "This piece is about longing and beauty, and the ache of remembering something precious. You're playing it like a math equation. Notes plus rhythm equals music. That's not wrong exactly, it's just not complete." Ethan's jaw tightened defensively. "How am I supposed to play it then?" Devin sat beside him on the piano bench, their shoulders almost touching. "Can I show you something?" At Ethan's nod, Devin placed his hands on the keys. But instead of playing the Nocturne, he played a simple C major scale, the most basic exercise any pianist learns. "Listen to the difference," Devin said, playing the scale again, but this time with subtle variations in touch and timing. The same notes transformed into something alive, breathing, almost conversational. Music isn't just pitch and rhythm. It's color and texture and weight. Every note can be shaped 1,000 different ways. He demonstrated with the Nocturne's opening phrase, playing it first mechanically, then with increasing emotional depth. The same melody became a completely different experience. When you play this phrase, Devin explained, you're not just hitting these specific keys in this specific order. You're telling a story about someone remembering a perfect moment that's gone forever. Someone holding on to beauty, even though it hurts. Does that make sense? Ethan stared at the keys, his expression serious. "I don't know if I can do that." "Why not?" "Because..." The boy struggled to articulate something complex. "Because if I play it like it really means something, if I let myself feel it that much, what if I can't stop feeling it? What if it's too much?" Devin's throat tightened. This 10-year-old had just articulated exactly what had kept Devin from playing for 3 years. The fear that opening the door to genuine emotion through music would unleash everything he'd been working so hard to contain. "That's the scary part," Devin admitted. "And it's also the important part. Music can hold feelings that are too big for words. It's a safe place to feel things that seem too dangerous to feel anywhere else." "Is that why you started playing again at the gala?" Devin thought about Harrison's cruel challenge, about the anger that had made him accept it, about the unexpected catharsis that had followed. "Honestly, I started playing because I was tired of being afraid. tired of letting fear make me smaller. Your dad was being a jerk, and I wanted to prove him wrong. Ethan laughed unexpectedly, the sound bright and genuine. He was being a jerk. He's good at that sometimes. But then something changed while I was playing. Devin continued. I remembered why I loved music in the first place. Not because I was good at it, though, that helped, but because it let me be honest about things I couldn't talk about. Like missing my wife. Like being scared I'd forget her voice or the way she laughed. Music held all of that for me. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Patterson never talks about stuff like this. She just marks my mistakes and tells me to practice more. Mrs. Patterson sounds like a fine teacher for technique, Devin said diplomatically. But music needs more than technique. It needs someone willing to be vulnerable. Will you teach me that? Ethan asked quietly. The vulnerable part. Devin felt something shift in his chest, a door opening that he'd thought was sealed shut. I can try. But you have to understand I'm figuring this out too. I'm not some wise teacher with all the answers. I'm just a guy who stopped playing for 3 years and now I'm trying to find my way back. That's okay, Ethan said. Dad's trying to find his way back too. To me, I mean. Maybe we're all trying to find our way back to something. The wisdom in that statement coming from a 10-year-old made Devin's eyes sting with unshed tears. He thought about Lily, about the ways grief had changed their relationship, about all the conversations they hadn't had, because he'd been too afraid to be that honest. Play it again, Devin said. The Nocturne. But this time, think about something that matters to you. Something real. It doesn't have to be sad. It can be anything you feel strongly about. Ethan repositioned his hands on the keys, thinking. Can I think about my mom? Not about missing her because she's not dead or anything, but about missing how things used to be when we were all together. That's perfect, Devin said softly. This time when Ethan played, something was different. The notes were the same, the fingering identical, but the music had weight and meaning it had lacked before. He wasn't playing perfectly, his tempo wavered in places, and he lost some of the technical precision, but the emotional honesty was undeniable. Devin watched the boy's face as he played, seeing the concentration mixed with vulnerability, the effort to stay connected to real feeling while managing the technical demands. This was what music was supposed to be. Not a performance calculated to impress, but an act of genuine expression. When Ethan finished, there were tears on his cheeks that he quickly wiped away embarrassed. That Devin said firmly was beautiful. That was real. I messed up in the middle part. I don't care about the mistakes. I care that you were brave enough to feel something while you played. That's harder than getting every note right. Harrison had reappeared in the doorway, though neither of them had noticed. He'd heard his son play the Nocturne dozens of times during practice sessions he'd barely paid attention to, always distracted by emails or phone calls or the endless demands of running a company. But this time, really listening, he finally understood what he'd been missing. His son had been trying to communicate through music all along, and Harrison had been too deaf to hear him. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. Devin stood up from the piano bench, giving Ethan space. I'll work with you, he said. 1 lesson a week to start. But I have some conditions. Okay, Ethan agreed immediately. First, you keep working with Mrs. Patterson on technique. I'm not trying to replace her. Second, you practice at least 30 minutes every day, but not just running through pieces. Real practice where you're working on something specific. Third, he glanced toward the doorway where Harrison stood. Your dad has to learn too. Harrison stepped into the room, surprised. Me. You, Devin confirmed. If you want to understand your son, you need to understand his language. That means learning at least the basics of piano. Nothing advanced. but enough that when Ethan tries to show you something he's learned, you'll know what you're listening for." Harrison looked terrified. "I'm 52 years old. I've never played an instrument in my life. I don't have any musical talent." "You don't need talent," Devin said. "You need willingness. The question is whether you're willing to be bad at something, to struggle, and feel foolish if it means connecting with your son." The challenge hung in the air between them. Ethan watched his father, hardly daring to hope. Harrison thought about all the business deals he'd negotiated, all the risks he'd taken with money and property and investments. When was the last time he'd risked something that actually mattered? When had he last been willing to look foolish for the sake of someone he loved? "Okay," Harrison said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Teach me." Ethan's face transformed with surprised joy. Devin nodded, satisfied. "Then we start next week," Devin said. "Both of you. 1 hour with Ethan, 30 minutes with Harrison. And one rule for both of you: no phones, no distractions, no pretending you're somewhere else. When you're at that piano, you're present, completely. Deal?" Harrison said immediately. "Deal," Ethan echoed. As Devin prepared to leave, Ethan followed him to the door. "Mr. Matthews." "Just Devin is fine." "Devin, that video of you playing, everyone's trying to figure out who you are, what your story is. Are you going to tell them?" Devin considered the question. 2 million views. Strangers speculating about his life. The privacy he'd carefully maintained for 3 years, suddenly vulnerable. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "What do you think I should do?" Ethan thought about it seriously. "I think you should play again, not for YouTube or for famous people, but for yourself, because you're really good, and it seems sad that nobody gets to hear you anymore." "When did you get so wise?" Devin asked, smiling, despite the emotion tightening his chest. "I'm not wise. I just know what it's like when someone stops doing something they love because it hurts too much. My dad stopped being happy when he stopped having time for us. You stopped playing when your wife died. Maybe both of you stopped too soon." The observation was simple and devastating. Devin crouched down to meet Ethan's eyes directly. "You might be right. I guess we'll find out together." And that night, Devin sat at his sister's piano. She'd insisted on keeping one in her house, even though neither she nor her kids played, just in case Devin ever changes his mind, and he played for the first time in 3 years without an audience of wealthy strangers watching. He played Sarah's favorite pieces, and his own favorites, and random melodies that came to him in the moment. His daughter Lily appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. She'd been 5 when her mother died, 12 now, and she'd never heard her father play piano. To her, he was the valet who came home tired and made dinner and helped with homework. Not this. Not someone whose hands could create beauty that filled a room like light. "Dad," she whispered. Devin stopped playing and turned to look at her. "Hey, baby girl. I didn't know you could do that." "I couldn't," he admitted. "Not for a long time. But I think maybe I can again." Lily crossed the room and sat beside him on the bench exactly where Ethan had sat earlier that day. "Will you teach me?" The question pierced Devin's heart. Of course Lily wanted to learn. Of course she'd been waiting for him to offer. She was Sarah's daughter, music was in her blood. But he'd been so locked in his own grief that he'd never considered sharing this with her. "Yes," he said, pulling her close. "Yes, I will teach you. We'll learn together." That night marked a turning point. The wall Devin had built around his musical self began to crumble, not all at once, but steadily, brick by brick. And with each piece that fell away, he found not the overwhelming grief he'd feared, but something more complex and sustainable. Memory mixed with hope. Sadness balanced by beauty. The past honoring itself by making space for a future. Eleanor Hartwell published her review in the Boston Globe 3 days after the gala. The headline read, "The most moving performance I've witnessed in 20 years came from a hotel valet." The article went viral, immediately picked up by national news outlets, and shared hundreds of thousands of times across social media. She'd done her research thoroughly. Devin's history at Juilliard, his early promise, the tragedy that had derailed his career. But she'd written about it with respect and sensitivity, focusing not on the sensational elements, but on the deeper story about grief, resilience, and the healing power of art. The article included a link to the gala video, which now had over 5 million views. The comments section had evolved from idle speculation into genuine appreciation, with musicians and music lovers from around the world weighing in on Devin's interpretation and technical skill. More significantly, Eleanor had connected Devin's story to a larger conversation about how society values artists, about the assumption that anyone working a service job must be untalented or uneducated, about the invisible lives of competence and skill hidden behind uniforms and professional distance. The response was overwhelming. Offers came flooding in. A community center in Dorchester wanted him to teach disadvantaged kids. A recording label proposed an album of classical standards. An arts nonprofit invited him to speak at their fundraiser about the importance of arts education. Most surprisingly, an anonymous donor had established a scholarship in Sarah's name at Berklee College of Music, specifically for students who'd experienced the loss of a spouse or parent. The scholarship would cover full tuition plus living expenses. When Devin tried to find out who'd made such a generous gift, he hit a wall of legal privacy protections. He suspected Harrison, though the real estate mogul denied it with a smile that suggested otherwise. The media attention was simultaneously flattering and overwhelming. Devin found himself sitting for interviews, being asked to tell and retell the story of that night of his life before and after Sarah's death. Some interviewers were respectful. Others were exploitative, more interested in tears and tragedy than genuine understanding. Through it all, Devin kept his commitment to Ethan and Harrison. Every week, like clockwork, he showed up at the Beacon Hill brownstone for lessons. Watching Harrison struggle through basic scales was both painful and beautiful. The man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated multi-million-dollar deals turned red-faced and frustrated trying to coordinate his hands for simple exercises. But he showed up every single week, despite the frustration, despite the embarrassment, despite having no natural aptitude for an instrument that required patience and humility he'd never had to develop before. Ethan bloomed under Devin's teaching. The boy's technical skills improved steadily, but more importantly, his emotional connection to music deepened. He learned to play not just with his fingers, but with his whole heart, channeling his complicated feelings about his parents' divorce into increasingly mature interpretations. One afternoon, 6 weeks into their lessons, something remarkable happened. Harrison had been struggling through a basic version of Ode to Joy, making mistakes that would have embarrassed a first-year student. His frustration was mounting his jaw tight with the effort of controlling his temper. Ethan sat on the couch, ostensibly doing homework, but actually watching his father with careful attention. "I can't do this!" Harrison finally exploded, his hands crashing down on the keys in discord. "I don't know why I thought I could learn this at my age." "It's stupid. I'm too old, too uncoordinated, too scared," Devin interrupted calmly. Harrison's head snapped up. "What? You're not struggling because you're old or uncoordinated. You're struggling because you're terrified of being bad at something. Your whole life you've been competent, successful, in control. Now you're doing something that requires you to be a beginner, to fail repeatedly, to improve so slowly that progress feels invisible. That's not about age. That's about pride." The words hit Harrison like cold water. He started to argue, then stopped, recognizing the truth in Devin's observation. "Watch your son," Devin continued, gesturing toward Ethan. "He makes mistakes every single lesson, sometimes big ones. But he keeps trying because he cares more about the music than about looking good. He's brave enough to be bad at something because he knows that's how you get better." Harrison looked at Ethan, who met his eyes with an expression that mixed sympathy and challenge. His 10-year-old son was braver than he was. The realization stung. "Show me again," Harrison said quietly, returning his hands to the keys. "Slower this time." "I'll get it eventually." Something shifted in the room's energy. Ethan abandoned his homework and came to stand beside the piano, watching his father struggle through the exercise with newfound respect. This was vulnerability he'd never witnessed before. His powerful, confident father choosing to look foolish for the sake of connection. After the lesson, as Devin was packing his materials, Ethan pulled him aside. "He's really trying, the boy," whispered. "I didn't think he would actually do it. I thought he'd quit after the first week." "Your dad's a lot of things," Devin replied, "but he's not a quitter. He's just been quitting the wrong things. Work is easy for him. This is hard. But hard is sometimes exactly what we need." As Devin drove home that evening, he thought about his own journey over the past 6 weeks. The media attention had been intense, but manageable. The job offers had been flattering, but mostly impractical. What mattered more was the quiet transformation happening in his own home. Lily had become his most dedicated student. She practiced every day, often for hours, with the kind of focused intensity that reminded him painfully of Sarah. But it was a good pain, the kind that honored memory rather than running from it. His sister Maya had noticed the change in him. "You're coming back to life," she'd said one evening, watching him help Lily with a difficult passage. "Not all the way? Not yet. But you're not the ghost you were 6 months ago." She was right. Music had opened a door he'd thought was sealed forever, and through that door came not just pain, but possibility. The chance to be a teacher, the opportunity to connect with his daughter through shared passion. The satisfaction of watching Harrison and Ethan rebuild their relationship one awkward lesson at a time. But there was still something missing. Devin played for Lily, and for his students practiced in his sister's house, and occasionally at the community center, where he'd started teaching a free class on Saturday mornings. But he hadn't performed publicly since the gala. The thought of being on stage, of making music his profession, again still felt impossible. Until Eleanor Hartwell called with a proposition. "The Boston Pops is doing a benefit concert for music education," she explained. "They want you to perform, not as some novelty act or viral sensation, as a genuine artist. They're offering you the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto with full orchestra." Devin's heart seized. Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto was considered one of the most technically demanding pieces in the classical repertoire. He'd performed it once at 17 at a youth competition where his interpretation had won first place and launched his Juilliard acceptance. "I can't," he said immediately. "Why not, Eleanor? I haven't played with an orchestra in over a decade. I haven't performed publicly except for that one gala performance. I'm teaching part-time while working as a valet. I'm not. I can't." "You're scared," Eleanor said, echoing Devin's own words to Harrison. The parallel was obvious and annoying. "Being scared is sensible. That's a 40-minute concerto. The practice time alone would be hundreds of hours. I have a daughter to take care of, a job. The concert is in 4 months." Eleanor interrupted. "The Pops will pay you $20,000. Guaranteed minimum with potential performance bonuses. That's more than half what you make in a year as a valet. And before you say you can't take time off work, I already spoke to Robert Chen at the Fairmont. He's offering you a leave of absence with benefits maintained." Devin sat down heavily on his bed, overwhelmed. "You've been busy." "I believe in you," Eleanor said simply. "More importantly, I believe that voice needs to be heard. Not because of some viral video or feel-good story, but because you're genuinely talented, and the world needs more beauty, especially beauty that comes from authentic human experience. I don't know if I can do it. Then find out. Isn't that what you've been telling your students? That the only way to know what you're capable of is to try. After hanging up, Devin sat in silence for a long time. Through the wall, he could hear Lily practicing, working through a Mozart sonata, with careful attention to the dynamics he'd shown her. Downstairs, Maya was making dinner, singing off-key to whatever playlist she had running. This was his life now. Modest but full, healing slowly, building something new from the ruins of what he'd lost. But was that enough? Would it always be enough? Or was there room to reach for more, to honor Sarah's memory, not by hiding from music, but by sharing it as generously as possible? He pulled out his phone and scrolled to the video of his gala performance, the one that had started all of this. The comments had continued to grow now, numbering in the thousands. He read through them slowly. This made me cry. Thank you for sharing your gift. I've been avoiding piano since my dad died. This inspired me to try again. I showed this to my music students to demonstrate what real artistry looks like. This performance saved my life. I was in a dark place, and this reminded me that beauty exists. One comment in particular caught his attention. It was from someone with the username Ethan Webb 10. Mr. Matthews is teaching me piano now. He says music can hold feelings too big for words. I think that's what this performance did for everyone watching. It held something too big for any of us to carry alone. Devin's eyes blurred with tears. This 10-year-old understood something profound. Music was meant to be shared, not hoarded. Pain transformed through art became something that could help others carry their own burdens. He opened his email and began typing a response to Eleanor. I'll do it. On one condition. I want to dedicate the performance to Sarah, and I want any proceeds beyond the performance fee donated to the scholarship fund in her name. If I'm going to do this, it needs to mean something beyond just me playing piano again. Eleanor's response came within minutes. Done. Rehearsals start in 2 weeks. Prepare to work harder than you've worked in years. Rachmaninoff doesn't forgive half measures. That night at dinner, Devin told Maya and Lily about the concert. Lily's eyes went wide. With the Boston Pops. That's like really famous, right? Very famous, Maya confirmed, squeezing Devin's hand across the table. Your dad's going to be amazing. I'm going to be terrified, Devin corrected. But I'm going to try. That's all I can promise. Mom would be proud, Lily said softly. The words broke something open in Devin's chest. Yeah, he managed. I think she would be. The next day, he told Harrison and Ethan about the concert during their lesson. Harrison's response was immediate and enthusiastic. We'll be there. Front row. I'll buy out the whole section if I have to. That's not necessary. Maybe not, but I'm doing it anyway. You've given my son back to me. You've taught me what it means to really show up for someone. The least I can do is show up for you. Ethan was bouncing with excitement. Can I tell people at school that my piano teacher is performing with the Boston Pops? If you want, Devin said, amused by the boy's enthusiasm. Oh, I want. Tommy Robertson keeps saying his piano teacher is better than mine. Wait until he hears about this. The innocence of that concerned children competing over whose teacher was better made both adults laugh. But underneath the humor, Devin felt something profound shifting. For 3 years, he'd defined himself by what he'd lost. Now, slowly, he was beginning to define himself by what he was building. A teacher, a father, an artist finding his way back to his calling. It wouldn't be easy. The path forward was uncertain and probably painful in ways he couldn't predict. But for the first time since Sarah's death, Devin felt something that had been missing for too long. Hope. The reality of preparing Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto hit Devin like a freight train. The piece was nicknamed Rach 3 in the classical music world, and its reputation for being brutally difficult was well earned. 40 minutes of virtuosic playing that demanded perfect technique, phenomenal stamina, and deep musical understanding. Devin established a practice schedule that was punishing even by conservatory standards. Up at 5 every morning to practice for 2 hours before Lily woke up. Another 2 hours after she went to bed. 4 hours on Saturdays while Maya took Lily to her activities. Sundays were slightly lighter, only 3 hours, because he'd promised Lily they'd spend time together. The Fairmont had been generous about his leave of absence, and the valet staff had thrown him an impromptu celebration when he'd announced it. Mrs. Freeman had cried, telling him she'd always known there was something special about him. Robert Chen had pulled him aside privately. "When this is over, you've got a decision to make. Do you come back to parking cars, or do you pursue music seriously? I'll hold your position for 6 months. After that, I need to know you're committed one way or another." It was a fair question, with no easy answer. Teaching was starting to generate modest income between Ethan Lilly, the community center classes, and 3 other students he'd taken on. He was making almost enough to replace his valet salary. But almost wasn't enough when you had a child to support. The pop's performance fee would help, but it wasn't a sustainable career. Concert performances were rare and inconsistent. Recording contracts were competitive and uncertain. The practical reality of being a professional musician in 2024 was far more complicated than the romantic notion suggested. But first, he had to survive the concerto. The Boston Pops conductor William Sterling was a perfectionist with exacting standards. Their first rehearsal together was humbling. Devin had practiced extensively on his own, but playing with an orchestra was a completely different experience. Timing had to be precise. Balance between piano and orchestra required constant adjustment. Every phrase needed to fit within the ensemble's interpretation. "You're rushing the cadenza," Sterling noted after their first run-through of the first movement. "I know it feels right to push forward there, but the orchestra needs to breathe with you. Pull back slightly. Give us space to match your energy." Devin made the adjustment, and the difference was immediately apparent. This was collaborative music making at the highest level, where individual artistry served a larger whole. Between rehearsals, Devin continued teaching. His students had become more than just income or obligation. They were connections that anchored him in purpose beyond his own performance anxiety. Harrison's progress remained slow but steady. The Mogul had developed genuine appreciation for music's demands, and his relationship with Ethan had transformed completely. They practiced together sometimes, father and son, sitting at the piano bench, working through simple duets that Harrison would have dismissed as childish 6 months ago. "I can't believe I'm saying this," Harrison admitted during one lesson, "but I actually enjoy practicing. Not because I'm good at it, I'm still terrible, but because it's time with Ethan where we're both focused on the same thing. We're not fighting. We're not awkward. We're just together." "That's the point," Devin said. "Music is a shared language. You're learning to speak it together." Victor Stone had shown up unexpectedly at one of these lessons, arriving with his usual swagger that faltered when he saw Harrison patiently working through scales while Ethan offered encouragement. "This is what you've been doing with your Wednesday afternoons?" Victor asked incredulously. "I thought you were meeting with investors." "I am investing," Harrison replied, without looking up from the keys. "Just not in real estate." The comment had prompted Victor to leave quickly uncomfortable with emotions and priorities he didn't understand. But the encounter had solidified something for Harrison. He no longer cared what his business partner thought about his choices. For the first time in decades, he was making decisions based on what mattered rather than what appeared successful. As the concert date approached, media interest intensified. The story had all the elements journalists loved: tragedy redemption, unexpected talent, a return to the spotlight. Devin did carefully selected interviews, trying to balance sharing his story with maintaining his privacy. One interview stood out. A journalist from NPR asked him why he'd chosen to return to performance with such a difficult piece. Because easy wouldn't have meant anything, Devin answered honestly. If I came back with something simple and safe, I'd always wonder if I was really back or just playing at it. Rachmaninoff demands everything you have. It doesn't accept half measures or protected hearts. You have to be all in or you'll fail spectacularly. And you're ready for that. No, Devin admitted. I'm terrified. But I'm doing it anyway. The interview went viral in its own right, resonating with people facing their own scary return to abandoned dreams. 2 weeks before the concert disaster struck, Devin woke up with his right hand cramped and painful, the muscles seized in spasm. He'd been practicing too much, pushing too hard, and his body was rebelling. The doctor's diagnosis was discouraging repetitive strain injury, requiring immediate rest. No playing for at least a week, the doctor ordered. Ice it, take anti-inflammatories, and for God's sake stop treating your hands like they're indestructible. A week of no practice with only 2 weeks until the performance was catastrophic. Devin called William Sterling in a panic. We'll have to postpone, Sterling said pragmatically. Better to push it back than to have you injure yourself permanently. But postponing felt like failure. Devin hung up and stared at his swollen hand, all his fears about inadequacy rushing back. Maybe this had been a mistake. Maybe he'd been foolish to think he could return to performance level after so many years away. When Lily came home from school and found him sitting in the dark, she knew something was wrong. Dad, I can't play, he said, holding up his injured hand. The concert, I can't. They said a week of rest, right? Lily interrupted, practical in the way 12-year-olds sometimes are. The concert's in 2 weeks. That leaves you 1 week to practice. That's not enough time. Maybe not for someone who didn't already spend 10 years learning this piece, Lily said, sitting beside him. But you know it, Dad. It's in your hands and your brain and your heart. 1 week of rest won't erase that. You taught me that muscle memory doesn't disappear just because you take a break. Her confidence in him was simultaneously touching and terrifying. What if I'm not ready? Then you'll be not ready in front of a bunch of people who want you to succeed anyway. But I don't think that's what will happen. I think you'll be amazing because you're always amazing even when you're scared. Devin pulled his daughter close, marveling at her wisdom. When did you get so smart? I learned from watching you teach Ethan. You told him that fear is just information, not instruction. It tells you something's important, but it doesn't tell you what to do about it. So yeah, you're scared. That means this matters. What you do with that fear is up to you. That night, Devin forced himself to follow the doctor's orders. Ice, rest, anti-inflammatories, and something harder, trusting that his preparation had been sufficient, that the thousands of hours he'd invested in his craft wouldn't disappear in 1 week of forced inactivity. Harrison called to check on him, having heard about the injury through Eleanor's journalistic network. Do you need anything? Physical therapy? A specialist, I can make calls. I need to rest, Devin interrupted gently. That's what the doctor ordered. Not connections or special treatment. Just rest. That's impossibly hard for me to accept, Harrison admitted. When there's a problem, I'm used to throwing money or resources at it until it's solved. You're telling me the solution is to do nothing. The solution is to trust the process, to let my body heal, to remember that sometimes the most powerful action is stepping back. You're a better man than I am. I'm just someone who's had to learn these lessons the hard way, Devin replied. You'll get there. The week of rest was excruciating. Devin attended rehearsals, but couldn't play, forced to watch the substitute pianist work through his part, while he sat in the audience taking notes. It was torture, and also revelation. Hearing the piece from outside, rather than inside it, gave him new perspective on the orchestra's role, on the dialogue between soloist and ensemble, on moments where he'd been forcing his interpretation rather than allowing it to breathe naturally. When he returned to the piano after 7 days, his hand felt better. Not perfect, but functional. He had 1 week to refine and polish, 1 week to trust that his preparation had been sufficient. The final rehearsal was scheduled for the morning of the performance. Devin arrived at Symphony Hall with his stomach in knots, his injured hand taped for support, his entire career as a returning performer depending on the next few hours. William Sterling greeted him with careful optimism. "How's the hand better? We'll find out how much better in about 30 seconds." Devin sat at the concert grand piano, a magnificent Steinway that had been played by legends. He placed his hands on the keys, feeling the familiar weight and resistance. And then he began. The orchestra joined him, and suddenly it wasn't about his hand, or his fears, or his doubts. It was about Rachmaninoff's genius about music that had survived over a century because it captured something essential about human longing and triumph. It was about the conversation between piano and orchestra, between one artist's vision and 100 musicians' collective effort to bring that vision to life. By the end of the first movement, Sterling was smiling. By the end of the third movement, he was beaming. "Ladies and gentlemen," the conductor addressed the orchestra when they'd finished the full run-through. "I've conducted this concerto 17 times with various soloists. What we just experienced is in the top 3 performances I've ever been privileged to be part of. Mr. Matthews, whatever you did during your week of rest, it worked. Tonight's audience is in for something special." The orchestra applauded a genuine show of respect from professional musicians who rarely offered empty praise. Devin felt tears threatening, but held them back. "Thank you, all of you. This has been..." He couldn't finish the sentence, too overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. That afternoon, while resting before the evening performance, Devin received a text from Ethan. "Mr. Sterling called my dad. He said you were incredible at rehearsal. I told him we already knew that. Break a leg tonight, but not your hand again." The message made him smile, despite his nerves. Another text arrived, this one from Eleanor Hartwell, "Full house tonight. No pressure, but the Boston Globe, New York Times, and NPR are all sending reviewers. Still no pressure, though." Devin laughed at the transparent lie. Of course there was pressure. His return to performance would be judged by people whose opinions shaped careers. But somehow knowing that made it less scary, rather than more. He'd survived losing Sarah. He'd survived 3 years of self-imposed exile from music. He'd survived relearning how to be vulnerable enough to teach and connect with students. A concert, even a high-stakes one, was just a concert. It couldn't hurt him worse than he'd already been hurt. That thought, paradoxically, was liberating. Symphony Hall glowed with anticipation as Boston's cultural elite took their seats. The sold-out performance had drawn music lovers from across New England, many having read Eleanor's articles or seen the viral video. They came curious about the valet-turned-pianist the human interest story made flesh. But they would stay for the music. Backstage, Devin ran through his pre-performance ritual. Finger exercises, deep breathing, the private moment of centering that every performer develops to manage nerves that never fully disappear, no matter how many times you walk onto a stage. Maya appeared in the green room, having left Lily with friends in their premium seats. courtesy of Harrison, who'd made good on his promise to buy out an entire section for Devin's supporters. "You've got this," Maya said, squeezing his shoulder. "I hope so. Hope nothing. I know so. I've watched you prepare. I've seen the work you've put in. Sarah would be so proud." The mention of his wife's name could have derailed him, but tonight it felt like a blessing. "I'm playing for her," Devin said quietly. "Everything else is just noise." A stage manager appeared in the doorway. 5 minutes, Mr. Matthews. 5 minutes until everything changed, or stayed the same, or something in between that he couldn't predict. Devin walked to the wings where he could see the orchestra settling into position. The audience murmur created a living sound that reminded him of ocean waves, rhythmic and eternal. He spotted Lily in the third row, her face bright with excitement. Next to her sat Maya, and beside Maya was Harrison, with Ethan on his lap, despite the boy being almost too big for such gestures. His community center students occupied a whole row, many of them first-time symphony attendees who'd scraped together money for tickets. Mrs. Freeman from the hotel sat near them, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief before the performance had even begun. William Sterling caught his eye and nodded. Time. Devin walked onto the stage to immediate applause, the bright lights overwhelming after the dim backstage area. The Steinway waited patient and perfect, its black surface gleaming under the spots. He'd played this instrument in rehearsal, knew its quirks and qualities had made peace with its particular voice. He sat at the bench, adjusted his position, and looked up at Sterling. The conductor's baton rose. The audience fell silent with that peculiar hush that precedes live performance, where hundreds of people collectively hold their breath in anticipation. The orchestra's introduction began strings and winds, establishing Rachmaninoff's dark, romantic, harmonic world. Devin counted measures in his head, his hands poised above the keys, his injured right hand taped but functional, his whole being focused on the imminent entry that would define everything that followed. And then his moment arrived. His fingers descended to the keys, and the piano sang out with the concerto's iconic opening theme. The notes that had terrified him in practice now felt inevitable, as if they'd been waiting 3 years for him to be ready to play them. His technique was secure, his musicality profound, his interpretation informed by loss and hope in equal measure. The first movement unfolded like a conversation between darkness and light. Rachmaninoff's genius lay partly in his ability to write music that was both technically demanding and emotionally direct melodies that grabbed the heart even as the fingers performed acrobatic feats across the keyboard. Devin navigated the challenges with focused intensity, his practice hours evident in every phrase. But more than technical mastery, he brought something personal to the performance. Each melody carried undertones of Sarah, her laugh, her encouragement, her belief that music was humanity's highest calling. When he reached the first movement's cadenza, that extended passage where the piano performs alone without orchestral support, the audience leaned forward collectively. This was where soloists proved their worth, where there was nowhere to hide behind ensemble sound. Devin's hands flew across the keys with precision that belied his week of injury and rest. The cadenza's cascading runs and thunderous chords filled the hall with sound that seemed impossible to come from one instrument and one pair of hands. Yet there it was, Rachmaninoff's vision made real through dedication and skill, and the ineffable quality that separates competent playing from artistry. The orchestra re-entered, and Devin navigated the dialogue between piano and ensemble with mature musicianship that suggested not just technical preparation, but deep understanding of how collaborative music-making works at the highest level. The first movement concluded with thunderous chords that resonated through the hall's famous acoustics. There should have been applause. The audience was clearly dying to respond, but classical convention demanded silence between movements. That silence lasted only a second, before a few audience members forgot the rule and began clapping immediately, hushed by their neighbors. But the brief lapse revealed the emotional state of the room. People were moved deeply by what they were hearing. Sterling allowed a brief pause for Devin to collect himself, then launched into the second movement. The intermezzo was Rachmaninoff at his most romantic melodies that seemed to capture longing itself in musical form. Here, technical fireworks gave way to lyrical beauty, to phrases that needed to sing rather than dazzle. Devin's hands shaped the melodies with tender care, each note given space to breathe and resonate. He thought of slow dances with Sarah, in their tiny apartment, of the way she'd hum along when he practiced, of the 1,000 small moments of domestic beauty that seemed insignificant at the time, but now felt like treasures beyond price. The movement's climactic section built gradually waves of emotion, cresting higher and higher, until the piano and orchestra merged in a moment of transcendent beauty that left several audience members openly weeping. As the second movement faded into stillness, Devin took a deep breath. The third movement awaited the concerto's grand finale, where Rachmaninoff pulled out all the stops in a virtuosic display that tested stamina and skill in equal measure. Sterling's baton rose for the final time, and the orchestra exploded into the movement's energetic opening. Devin's hands matched their energy, flying across the keyboard with abandon that came from confidence built through hundreds of practice hours. The third movement was a celebration, a victory lap, a declaration that joy could exist alongside sorrow, that life continued despite loss, that music was humanity's way of insisting that beauty mattered even in the face of inevitable tragedy. Devin's injured hand protested slightly during a particularly demanding passage, a twinge of pain that he pushed through with gritted determination. Not now. Not yet. Just a few more pages. The concerto built to its famous conclusion, a series of massive chords that required the pianist to cover the entire keyboard in sweeping gestures that were as much physical performance as musical one. Devin's arms swept across the keys, drawing out every ounce of sound the Steinway could produce, supported by the full orchestra at maximum dynamic. The final chord rang out a triumphant assertion of music's power to transform and transcend. Devin's hands remained on the keys, his head bowed, his entire body trembling with adrenaline and relief and emotions too complex to name. For a moment, silence. Then Symphony Hall exploded. The audience leapt to their feet as one applause thundering through the space with physical force. Bravos rang out from the balconies. The orchestra members tapped their bows against music stands in the traditional musical salute to exceptional performance. Devin stood slowly, his legs unsteady, and turned to face the audience. The sight of hundreds of people on their feet celebrating not just his playing, but his return, his survival, his refusal to let grief be the final word, overwhelmed him completely. Tears streamed down his face as he bowed, no longer caring about maintaining professional composure. This was too big for composure. This was 3 years of silence ended, a career resurrected, a life reclaimed, note by note. Sterling crossed to the piano and embraced him, a gesture of respect from one musician to another. The orchestra remained standing, their applause continuing as the audiences showed no signs of diminishing. In the third row, Lily was jumping up and down, screaming, "That's my dad! That's my dad!" with unrestrained joy. Beside her, Maya sobbed openly, her hand over her heart. Harrison held Ethan tight, both of them clapping so hard their hands would be sore tomorrow. Eleanor Hartwell stood in the press section, her professional objectivity abandoned, applauding with tears running down her face. She'd heard hundreds of performances in this hall, but something about this one felt historic, like witnessing a moment that would be discussed and remembered for years. The ovation continued for 7 minutes. 7 minutes of sustained applause that finally began to taper only when Sterling raised his hands to request silence for the remainder of the program. But before the applause could fully die, Devin did something unexpected. He returned to the piano bench and began to play again. Not Rachmaninoff this time. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the piece that had started everything at the gala months ago, the piece he'd played at Sarah's funeral, the music that connected his past to his present in an unbroken thread of love and loss. The audience settled back into their seats, understanding that they were being given an encore of profound personal significance. Devin played the sonata with even more emotional depth than he'd brought to the gala performance. Every note was an offering, a prayer, a conversation with his wife across the boundary of death. The technical perfection was present, but it was merely the vessel for something transcendent. When he finished, the silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't the silence of convention or anticipation. This was the silence of communion of an audience recognizing they'd witnessed something sacred. Into that silence, Devin spoke, his voice amplified by the hall's perfect acoustics. This performance is dedicated to my wife, Sarah Matthews, who believed that music was humanity's highest calling and most honest language. Everything I played tonight was a conversation with her. Thank you for listening and for allowing me to share her memory through sound. The applause that followed was different too. Softer, more reverent, filled with understanding that transcended mere appreciation for technical skill. After the concert, Devin was overwhelmed by well-wishers. Record executives handed him business cards. Festival directors extended invitations. Students asked for autographs and parents asked about lessons. But the moment that mattered most came when Lily pushed through the crowd and threw herself into his arms. You were amazing, Dad. Mom would have loved it. I hope so, baby girl. I really hope so. Harrison appeared with Ethan, both looking transformed by what they'd witnessed. I don't have words, Harrison said simply. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it. For what? For showing me what's possible. For demonstrating that it's never too late to return to what matters. For teaching me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the only path to genuine connection. Ethan hugged Devin around the waist. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Can I learn to play like that someday if you want to? Devin said, ruffling the boy's hair. But the playing is less important than understanding why we play. The music is just the language. What matters is what you say with it. As the crowd slowly dispersed, and Devin finally made his way backstage, Eleanor caught up with him. That was extraordinary, she said. I'll have my review published tomorrow, but I wanted you to know, now you didn't just perform well tonight. You created something that people will remember and discuss for years. Welcome back, Devin. We missed you. Later, alone in his dressing room while changing out of his performance attire, Devin sat quietly for a moment. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion mixed with satisfaction. He pulled out his phone and looked at Sarah's photo, one of his favorites from their wedding day. She was laughing at something off-camera, her joy captured forever in pixels and memory. I did it, he whispered to the image. I came back. I hope that's okay. I hope you understand. Of course she understood. Sarah had always understood. She'd believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself, had seen the artist in him when he only saw the anxious perfectionist. The performance tonight hadn't been about proving anything to critics or audiences. It had been about honoring her memory by returning to the thing they'd both loved most. About showing Lily that grief doesn't have to mean the end of everything beautiful. About demonstrating to Ethan and Harrison that second chances exist for those brave enough to reach for them. As Devin finally headed out to meet his family, he felt different than he had in 3 years. Not healed healing wasn't a destination, but a process, but hopeful. Open. Ready to embrace whatever came next. The performance had been a triumph, but more importantly, it had been a beginning. Spring came to Boston with tentative warmth tulips pushing through soil that still remembered winter's chill. 3 months after the concert, Devin's life had transformed in ways both dramatic and subtle. Eleanor's review in the Boston Globe had been rapturous. Devin Matthews' return to performance transcended mere technical excellence. His Rachmaninoff was imbued with the kind of hard-won wisdom that comes only from surviving genuine tragedy. Every phrase spoke not just of musical understanding, but of life lived deeply painfully and ultimately with hope. This is an artist reborn. The New York Times and NPR had echoed similar sentiments. Within days, offers had flooded in. A recording contract with Deutsche Grammophon for an album of Romantic-era piano works. Guest artist positions with orchestras in Philadelphia, Chicago, and San Francisco. An invitation to teach a summer masterclass at Tanglewood. Most significantly, Berklee College of Music had offered him a full-time teaching position in their classical performance department with flexible scheduling that would allow him to maintain private students and accept occasional performance opportunities. The salary was modest compared to what a concert career might eventually provide, but it was stable, meaningful work that aligned with everything he'd discovered about himself in the past months. Teaching wasn't a backup plan or a safe alternative to performance. It was a calling he'd found by accident and embraced by choice. Devin had accepted the position immediately. His last day at the Fairmont had been bittersweet. The valet staff threw him a party in the parking garage, complete with cake and champagne. Mrs. Freeman presented him with a framed photo from the gala, the moment before he'd started playing, when determination and fear were still competing on his face. "Remember where you came from," she'd said, hugging him tight. "Remember that dignity and artistry aren't about position or salary. You had both when you were parking cars. You have them still. Don't let success make you forget that." Robert Chen had been more pragmatic. "Keep in touch. Hotels always need elegant music for events. You're my first call when we want something special." The promise had been sincere, and Devin intended to honor it. The Fairmont had given him stability when he needed it most. That deserved loyalty even as he moved on. Teaching at Berklee proved simultaneously challenging and rewarding. His students were talented, ambitious, often arrogant, in the way young artists can be when they haven't yet experienced the humility that comes from real failure or loss. Devin found himself drawing on his own story more than he'd expected. Not to traumatize his students, but to help them understand that technical perfection without emotional honesty was just elaborate noise. Music is about communication, he told his first-year seminar. If you're not trying to say something genuine, something that matters to you personally, then why are you bothering? The world has enough technically proficient musicians performing emotionally empty music. Be more than that. Be brave enough to mean what you play. His community center classes continued now on Saturday mornings when his Berklee schedule allowed. These students' children from families who couldn't afford private lessons, adults returning to music after years away, retirees finding new purpose, reminded him why music mattered beyond professional accolades. One of his adult students was a 67-year-old woman named Margaret, who'd quit piano at 16 when her parents told her it was impractical. Now, 50 years later, she was relearning Chopin nocturnes with tears streaming down her face. "I wasted so much time," she told Devin after one particularly emotional lesson. 50 years of doing what was practical, responsible, appropriate. I forgot that sometimes being impractical is exactly what feeds your soul. Devin had no comfort for the time she'd lost, but he could help her reclaim what remained. "You're playing now. That's what matters. Not the years you didn't play, but the music you're making today." Harrison and Ethan's lessons continued, though their relationship had evolved significantly. Harrison still struggled with basic technique, would probably never progress beyond intermediate level at best. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was the weekly ritual of sitting at the piano together, father and son working through simple duets, making mistakes, and laughing about them, creating memories that had nothing to do with business deals, or custody schedules, or the complicated weight of adult responsibilities. Jennifer Harrison's ex-wife had noticed the change. The custody arrangement had gradually shifted from rigid court-mandated visitation to something more flexible and collaborative. Ethan now split his time more evenly between parents, and the transitions were no longer marked by tears and tension. At a parent-teacher conference at Ethan's school, Jennifer had pulled Harrison aside. "I don't know what you did," she said, "but whatever it was, it worked. You're actually present now when you're with him. Actually listening. I thought I'd never see that from you." Harrison had fought the urge to be defensive, instead accepting the observation as the complicated compliment it was. "I had help, a lot of help, from someone who showed me that being vulnerable isn't weakness." He'd told her about Devin, about the lessons about learning to accept being terrible at something because it meant connecting with their son. Jennifer had listened with visible surprise, then done something unexpected. She'd hugged him. "I'm glad you found your way back," she whispered. "Ethan needs his father. The real one, not the workaholic stranger who occasionally showed up between meetings." The moment had been awkward, but genuine. Harrison and Jennifer would never reconcile romantically. Too much damage had been done, but they were slowly, carefully becoming the co-parents Ethan deserved. Victor Stone had eventually approached Harrison about the changing nature of their partnership. "You're different. Softer. I'm not sure it's good for business." "Then maybe we need to rethink the business," Harrison had replied calmly. "I've been doing some analysis. The deals we've been chasing, the profits we've been prioritizing, they're not actually making me happy. They're just making me busy. There's a difference. Happiness isn't the goal. Success is. That's where we disagree. Success without happiness is just expensive emptiness. I've lived that life, Victor. I'm done with it." They'd restructured their partnership, with Harrison taking a less active role in day-to-day operations and focusing instead on sustainable development projects that aligned with his evolving values. The change had meant lower profits, but better sleep, fewer ulcers, and the ability to attend Ethan's piano recitals without checking his phone every 5 minutes. Devin's relationship with his daughter had deepened profoundly. Lily was progressing rapidly on piano, her natural talent combined with dedicated practice, making her one of his most promising students. But more important than her musical development was their emotional connection. They talked about Sarah now regularly and openly. Devin had stopped treating his wife's memory like a wound too tender to touch, and started sharing stories that kept her alive for Lily in ways that felt healthy rather than obsessive. "Tell me about when you and Mom met," Lily would ask, and Devin would describe Juilliard, the practice rooms, the first time Sarah had heard him play, and told him he was hiding behind the notes instead of using them to communicate. "She sounds amazing," Lily said after one such conversation. She was. "And you're so much like her. The way you listen to music, the way you focus when you practice. That's all her." "And you," Lily corrected gently. "It's both of you. I'm lucky that way." The observation was simple, but profound. Lily carried both her parents forward, honoring the past while building her own future. The Sarah Matthews Memorial Scholarship at Berkeley had grown significantly, the anonymous donations continuing and now supplemented by proceeds from Devin's recording contract. 5 students currently attended Berkeley on full scholarships, thanks to the fund, each of them having experienced the loss of a parent or spouse. Devin met with the scholarship recipients occasionally not as a benefactor, but as someone who understood their unique challenges. Music after loss, he'd learned, required a different kind of courage than music before loss. The ability to channel pain into beauty rather than letting pain destroy beauty entirely. The Deutsche Grammophon album had been recorded over 2 intense weeks at a studio in New York. Chopin, Rachmaninoff, Debussy, and Beethoven, the composers, who'd shaped Devin's understanding of piano's expressive range. The recording process had been both exhilarating and exhausting, with perfectionist producers demanding take after take until every phrase met their exacting standards. But when Devin heard the final product, he felt genuinely proud. This wasn't just a recording. It was a document of his return, a testament to resilience, proof that artistic death didn't have to be permanent. The album's liner notes included a dedication for Sarah, who believed music was conversation with the divine. And for everyone who's had to find their way back to what they love after loss tried to take it away. The journey is possible. This album is proof. Initial sales exceeded expectations, debuting in the top 10 on classical music charts. Critics praised the technical excellence, but focused more on the emotional depth, the sense of lived experience informing every interpretation. One review in particular captured something essential Matthews plays like someone who's died and been resurrected. There's a quality to his phrasing that suggests he knows something about music that can only be learned through suffering. Yet there's hope, too, an insistence that beauty survives tragedy. This paradox makes for compelling listening. Summer arrived, and with it came Devin's Tanglewood Masterclass. 20 advanced students from around the country gathered in the Berkshires for 2 weeks of intensive study. Devin had been nervous about teaching at this level, worried his unconventional path back to music might undermine his credibility. Those fears proved unfounded. The students hung on his every word, not because he was famous, but because his teaching combined technical rigor with emotional honesty in ways they'd rarely encountered. During one particularly memorable session, a talented 19-year-old was struggling with a Brahms intermezzo, playing it with perfect technique, but zero emotional investment. "Why are you playing this piece?" Devin asked. "Because it's on the curriculum. Because it demonstrates certain technical skills that graduate schools look for. Those are terrible reasons to play Brahms. Try again? Why this piece? What about it speaks to you personally?" The student looked confused. "I don't know if it speaks to me. It's just music." "There's no such thing as just music," Devin said firmly. Brahms wrote this when he was dealing with Clara Schumann's death, processing grief through composition. He's having a conversation with loss. If you're not willing to engage with that conversation, find a different piece. The directness shocked the student, but it also provoked genuine reflection. The next day, she played the same intermezzo with newfound depth, having spent the evening researching Brahms's relationship with Clara and thinking about her own experiences with loss. That's the difference, Devin told the class afterward. Music isn't about demonstrating skills. It's about using those skills to say something that matters. Never forget that. The masterclass ended with a student showcase concert. Devin sat in the audience listening to these young artists perform with increased emotional authenticity and felt profound satisfaction. This was impact that lasted beyond a single concert. This was shaping the next generation of musicians to value depth over flash, meaning over technical perfection. After the concert, one of the students approached him. "Professor Matthews, I wanted to thank you. I've studied with famous teachers, technically brilliant pianists who taught me how to play correctly. But you're the first person who taught me why to play. That matters more than I can express." These moments, teaching moments, connection moments, had become Devin's new measure of success. Not applause or album sales, though those were gratifying, but the chance to help others find their voice through music, to pass forward the gift that Sarah and his own teachers had given him. As fall approached, Devin received an unexpected invitation. The Boston Pops wanted him to perform again, this time as part of their annual holiday series. The proposed program, a mix of classical standards and seasonal favorites, designed to showcase both his serious artistry and his ability to make music accessible to broad audiences. He accepted immediately. Not because he needed the validation or exposure he'd had plenty of, both since the Rachmaninoff performance, but because it felt like closing a circle. 6 months ago, he'd returned to public performance terrified and uncertain. Now he could approach it with confidence built on solid foundation. The night before the contract signing, Devin sat at his home piano. He'd finally purchased one, a beautiful upright that fit perfectly in his apartment's living room, and played through the proposed program. Lily listened from the couch, doing homework, but obviously paying more attention to the music than to math problems. When Devin finished, she looked up. "Are you happy, Dad?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean you seem different than you used to? Before, even when you smiled, you seemed sad underneath. Now you seem actually happy even when you're serious or thinking hard about something." Devin considered her observation carefully. Was he happy? The question felt almost impossible to answer definitively. He still missed Sarah every single day. Still woke up sometimes reaching for her before remembering she wasn't there. Still felt the ache of her absence like a chronic condition that would never fully heal. But yes, underneath and alongside that pain, there was something that resembled happiness, purpose, connection, the satisfaction of doing work that mattered, the joy of watching Lily grow into her own musical voice, the privilege of helping students like Ethan find confidence, the pleasure of making music again without it destroying him. "I'm getting there," Devin finally answered. "I think maybe happiness after loss looks different than happiness before. It's more complicated, has more layers. But yeah, I'd say I'm happy. Not despite everything that happened, but somehow because of it. Does that make sense?" Lily nodded seriously. "Mom would be glad. That you're happy, I mean. She wouldn't want you to be sad forever." "No, she wouldn't. She'd probably be annoyed it took me so long to figure that out." They laughed together, the sound filling the apartment with warmth that felt like Sarah's presence, blessing their ongoing life. That night, Devin pulled out a journal he'd started keeping at his therapist's suggestion. Writing about his experiences had helped process emotions too complex for conversation. He read through entries from the past 6 months, tracking his journey from broken valet to returning artist to comfortable teacher. One entry in particular stood out, written the night after the Rachmaninoff performance. "I thought coming back to music would be about reclaiming what I lost. But it's not. It's about discovering who I became because of what I lost. The artist I am now is different from the one I was before Sarah died. Deeper, maybe. More aware of what matters. Less concerned with impressing people, more focused on genuine expression. I wouldn't have chosen this path. But since I'm on it, I might as well walk it fully. Reading those words months later, Devin recognized their truth more clearly than when he'd written them. Loss had broken him, yes, but rebuilding had created someone more whole than the person he'd been before, even if that wholeness looked different than original completeness. As he prepared for bed, Devin's phone chimed with a message from Harrison. "Ethan wants to know if he can perform at your holiday concert. Just one piece, something simple. He's been practicing like crazy. I think he's ready, but it's your call." Devin smiled and typed back, "Let's hear him play it next lesson. If he's ready, I'd be honored to share the stage with him. Tell him I'm proud of how hard he's working." The response came quickly. "You changed our lives. I'll never be able to repay that." "You don't need to repay it," Devin wrote. "Just keep showing up for your son. That's payment enough." Setting the phone aside, Devin looked around his modest apartment. The piano dominated the living room. Sheet music covered the coffee table. Photos of Sarah were mixed with photos of Lily and newer pictures from concerts and teaching moments. The space felt alive in ways it hadn't for years. Tomorrow, he'd teach his Berklee classes work with private students practice for the upcoming holiday concert. Next week, he'd attend Lily's school performance and Harrison's latest practice recital, where the Mogul would struggle through scales with endearing determination. It was a full life, a meaningful life. A life built from ruins, but no longer defined by them. As Devin finally turned off the lights, he found himself thinking about the question he'd asked at the beginning of this whole journey, the night of the gala, when everything changed. What if one moment of cruelty could lead to the most unexpected redemption? He had his answer now. Not just for himself, but for Harrison, for Ethan, for Lily, for all his students who'd watched his return and found courage to attempt their own. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was a practice like music itself. You showed up every day and did the work even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. You made mistakes and learned from them. You fell down and got back up. You honored what you'd lost by building something beautiful with what remained. That was the lesson Devin would carry forward. Not that music healed all wounds, but that music gave you a language to live with wounds that would never fully heal. A way to transform pain into beauty, isolation into connection, ending into beginning. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. 6 months later, on a crisp December evening, Devin stood backstage at Symphony Hall once again. But everything felt different this time. No fear, no doubt, just quiet confidence built on solid foundation. The holiday concert was sold out, families filling the hall with an energy different from the serious classical audience that had attended his Rachmaninoff performance. Children fidgeted in their seats, excited by the festive decorations and the promise of familiar carols alongside classical masterworks. Lily was performing tonight too, her first public appearance. She'd prepared a Mozart sonatina with careful attention to every detail Devin had taught her. Watching her warm up backstage, he saw Sarah in every gesture, but the resemblance no longer hurt the way it once had. Now it felt like continuity, like love persisting across time and loss. Ethan was backstage as well, practicing the simplified arrangement of Silent Night he'd been perfecting for weeks. Harrison stood nearby, trying not to hover his pride in his son, obvious to everyone watching. "You ready?" Devin asked Ethan. The boy nodded, more confident than he'd been 6 months ago. "I think so. I mean, I'm nervous, but you said nervousness just means it matters, right?" "Exactly right." The concert began with Devin playing a medley of classical pieces: Tchaikovsky's Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, Handel's Hallelujah Chorus arranged for piano, a virtuosic interpretation of Carol of the Bells. The audience responded with enthusiasm, charmed by the combination of technical excellence and accessible repertoire. Then came the moment Devin had been looking forward to. He stepped to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce two very special guest artists. My daughter Lily Matthews, age 12, will perform Mozart's Sonatina in C major, and my student Ethan Webb, age 10, will perform Silent Night." Both of these young musicians have taught me that music's greatest gift isn't technical perfection. It's honest expression. Please welcome them. Lily performed beautifully, her nerves visible, but managed her love of music evident in every phrase. The audience's warm applause at the conclusion made her grin with unrestrained joy. Ethan's performance was simpler, technically easier, but infused with genuine feeling that came from understanding what Devin had tried to teach him about vulnerability and authenticity. When he finished, his father was openly crying in the front row, and the audience's response was enthusiastic and genuine. After the young performers had taken their bows and exited, Devin returned for the concert's final piece. Not a holiday standard, but Debussy's Clair de Lune, the piece about light and beauty and finding grace in darkness. He'd played it at the gala for Harrison, offering hope to a broken man. Tonight, he played it for everyone in the hall who needed to hear that beauty persists, that second chances exist, that endings can become beginnings if we're brave enough to allow transformation. The notes floated through Symphony Hall with mature artistry that combined technical mastery with hard-won emotional wisdom. This wasn't the playing of a young prodigy trying to impress. This was the voice of an artist who'd survived genuine tragedy and chosen to make music anyway, because music was how he made sense of a world that often made no sense at all. When the final notes faded, the silence that followed was reverent. Then applause building like waves washing over Devin with warmth that he finally felt able to accept without guilt or reservation. After the concert, Devin stood in the lobby greeting audience members. Parents thanked him for inspiring their children. Students from his various teaching positions expressed gratitude for his mentorship. Strangers shared their own stories of loss and return finding courage in his example. Eleanor Hartwell appeared with her usual impeccable timing. Another triumph. "You're making a habit of this." "I'm trying to make it a practice, not a performance," Devin replied. "There's a difference." "There is indeed." "Have you given any thought to my proposal about the memoir she'd been asking for months, about writing a book detailing his journey from Juilliard prodigy to grieving valet to reborn artist? The story she insisted could help countless others facing their own returns from loss." "I'm still thinking about it," Devin said honestly. "Part of me wants to keep this private, but another part thinks that if my experience can help someone else find their way back, then maybe I have an obligation to share it. No pressure, but the offer stands whenever you're ready." Harrison approached with Ethan, both beaming. That was incredible. All of it. Especially giving these kids a chance to perform. "They earned it," Devin said, ruffling Ethan's hair. "They've put in the work. We've been talking." Harrison continued glancing at his son. "We want to fund a scholarship for your community center students. Kids who can't afford private lessons but have the passion and dedication to pursue music seriously. We'll call it the Sarah Matthews Community Outreach Scholarship." Devin felt tears threatening. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll help us administer it," Harrison replied. "Make sure it goes to kids who need it most. Kids like the ones you teach every Saturday morning, the ones who remind you why music matters beyond concert halls and prestigious conservatories." "Of course." "Yes, Thank you. Ethan tugged on Devin's sleeve. Mr. Matthews, I wanted to tell you something. When my parents got divorced, I thought I'd never be happy again. But now, because of piano, and because of you teaching my dad and everything, I actually am happy most of the time. So thank you for that. The simple honesty of the statement delivered by a 10-year-old who'd learned to articulate feelings most adults couldn't name brought Devin to his knees emotionally. He crouched down to meet Ethan's eyes. You made yourself happy by being brave enough to stay connected to what matters. I just showed up. You did the real work. As the crowd slowly dispersed and Devin finally prepared to leave, Lily took his hand. That was the best night ever, Dad. It really was, wasn't it? Do you think Mom saw it, like from heaven or wherever Devin considered the question seriously? He wasn't sure what he believed about afterlife or consciousness persisting beyond death, but he knew what felt true in his heart. I think she's in the music, he said. In every note we play with genuine feeling. That's how she stays alive. Through us, through beauty, through the courage to keep making art even when it hurts. Lily squeezed his hand. I like that answer. Walking out into the December night, Devin looked up at the stars barely visible above Boston's light pollution. Somewhere up there, maybe Sarah was watching. Or maybe she was nowhere, just gone, just memory and DNA and the legacy she'd left in Lily. It didn't matter which was true. What mattered was that Devin had found a way to honor her memory that gave life rather than taking it, to transform grief into beauty, to use his pain to help others carry theirs. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of redemption, resilience, and the transformative power of art. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the healing we need arrives through strangers who become teachers, who become friends, who become family. Sometimes our darkest moments become the foundation for our greatest transformations. The pain doesn't disappear. The loss doesn't unhappen. But we learn to carry it differently, to let it inform our art rather than destroy it. Devin Matthews learned to play again, not despite his grief, but because of it. He learned that second chances exist for those brave enough to risk vulnerability. He learned that teaching is its own form of performance, and connection is its own kind of success. Most importantly, he learned that endings are also beginnings, that death cannot silence music that lives in human hearts, that love persists in every beautiful thing we create after loss. Thank you for joining us on this journey of grief, grace, and the power of music to transform hearts. May you find your own way back to whatever you've lost, and may you have the courage to play your own truth, whatever form that takes. Until next time, keep believing in second chances. Keep honoring your losses by building beautiful things with what remains. Keep playing even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because that's when the music matters most.